How's it going, Paul?
Hey guys, how are things? We had some tech problems, I'm not going to lie.
That's great. Just build the suspense. It's all good.
I do apologise.
Brilliant. Sure, we'll get going. I think we've a lot of people on now, so I'll just do a quick intro and then I'll hand over to you, Paul. But welcome. This is a Freenow Ambassador event, so exclusive to drivers. So really delighted to have everyone join today. Just welcome to Paul. He's one of Ireland's leading personal financial advisors, and he's here to give a money masterclass on his self-employed. I'll let Paul run through the details of the webinar because I'm sure he'll do a far better job than I am. But just ahead, before we get going, we will be raffling off 5 free consultations with Ask Paul today. So everyone who's attended the webinar, we'll just do a raffle through the emails, and then we'll communicate that to the winners after the event. And then additionally, all attendees will also get access to a discount code for Ask Paul, for a consultation with them, which again will be shared in the presentation from Paul, but we'll communicate it with you guys afterwards, along with the Zoom webinar. So this is being recorded, so that we'll have that all afterwards and be shared. But I'm rambling now, so I'll hand over to you, Paul. So take away. Sorry, one last thing. We will be doing, if we've time, a Q&A. So if there are any questions, put them into the chat box. And if we've time at the end of the hour, we'll run through that as well. So over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Jamie. Jamie, just let me know, you can see the presentation on your screen as well, can you? And it's perfect. I just want to double check it's clicking through there. You can see those screens move, yeah?
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
You're very good. Okay, thanks. Well, guys, first of all, thanks very much to Freenow for having me, for Jamie and the team for organising this. As Jamie said, my name is Paul Merriman. I'm a certified financial planner and the CEO of a company called Fairstone. And I suppose I'm really delighted to be doing this presentation because there's so many self-employed people. Companies usually bring me in and we're talking to PAYE employees, which is good as well when that does happen. But I always get excited when I'm talking to self-employed people because I myself was self-employed. Our company was acquired last year, but for the last 12, 13 years, I've been self-employed, and I understand how difficult it can be to be self-employed, and I understand how difficult it can be to balance the books from a tax point of view, and also the impact it has on family and also on your personal finances. So to get a self-employed session like this in really does float my boat, I suppose, and I think you can give really quality advice over the next hour or so. I'm going to speak for about 50 minutes and hopefully do a 10-minute Q&A at the end. I've left my diary free after this for an hour, so I can stay around for as long as you want, as long as questions keep coming in. And don't be embarrassed if you don't ask a question on this or you're afraid to ask a question. I'm going to give you an email. You can email myself and the team after today's presentation as well. So look, as you know, this is called a Money Masterclass for the self-employed. I have got 3 or 4 different screens around me here. So I'm looking at various different screens. The camera's on the middle screen. And the reason why I think we're well poised to give this is that, first of all, I've been involved in a number of companies. So we have Ask Paul. We have Pax Financial, which was acquired by Fairstone. I have another tech company called Clear Choice. I've got a property company called Property Affairs, and then a marketing agency called Leading Social. This isn't for me to throw bouquets at myself, and this is for me just to let you know that I really do understand what it's like to be self-employed, and I understand, like I said, the trust tribulations that come along with being self-employed. I've set up numbers of business, sold a couple of companies, but again, I remember starting off 12 years ago and really, really struggling in a self-employed environment because I was ex-Irish Life and I was on a payroll. And I do think that some of you might have experienced that as well recently enough. So we're going to talk about that today and the importance of managing your business or your self-employed entity and the impact it has on your personal finances as well. As a business, we have over 240 million of assets under management for our clients, and just over 9,000 clients now. So we've done quite well in Ireland in the last 5 years in particular. We use social media. You know, the reason I'm putting these social media up is, I know some of you might not use TikTok for argument's sake. Don't worry if you do. I don't dance on TikTok. We give financial planning advice. Same with the likes of YouTube and Instagram. The reason why I'm letting you know these are there in the websites and the emails as well, over 30,000 people subscribe to emails, is that I'm going to give you a lot of information today. Hopefully you can absorb some of it that will really make an impact in your overall financial planning journey. But this is where you get all the free content. So we have free content on nearly every platform. So if you're always on Instagram, follow us there. If you're fair to get an email in once a week with some really good financial planning tips, go to the email, subscribe there. Or again, if it's a website you use, etc. So no matter where you are online, we have it covered in that there's a free financial planning academy and there's loads of free financial planning tools that I'm going to mention today, and you can find them anywhere. I know the team at Freenow are probably going to distribute some of the stuff I speak about today as well, as you're going to get them landing in your inbox, which is great. So yeah, I think after today, no matter where you want the financial planning advice, you can follow us and we'll be able to get some of that free information to you. I suppose, why are you here and why am I here? And ultimately speaking, why are you self-employed? So there's a few questions on the why screen. Why am I here? Well, like I said, I've helped over 9,000 clients in this practice over the last number of years, 12 years business experience. And we're very passionate about financial planning advice, but financial planning advice that we believe is delivered in a way that is, it's unbiased. You don't have to have 500,000 euro. You don't have to have 100 grand of an income to deal with myself and the team. We have clients coming to us that will be single parents that just want to invest the children's allowance for future educations for 10 or 15 years away for their kids. And then we have clients that are self-employed or limited company structures that are taking millions out of their companies in the best tax efficient manner. So no matter what it is from a financial planning journey point of view, we think we have you covered. Whether it's a mortgage, whether it's setting up a pension for the first time or investment account, or whether it's just making sure you can balance the books between your sole trader, your self-employed status, and your kind of personal bank account. So we think we have everyone covered. Why are you here? Well, hopefully you're trying to learn a bit more about personal finance and trying to make sure, trying to make sure that you have the basis covered. In the job you do, you work really, really hard, really, really long hours, and anybody that's self-employed from a why point of view was that I do think when people become self-employed, they're trying to do better or they feel they can do better in a self-employed environment rather than working for somebody. So it might mean that you want to be their own boss, which you guys pretty much are. You can decide what hours you work. It might be that you want to try and earn more money in more of a tax efficient manner. It might be that you wanted to grow your own personal kind of brand. And there's loads of people listening to this that will have various different reasons why they've turned self-employed. But ultimately speaking, the biggest pain in the backside about being self-employed is probably managing your money and paying tax. And there are two of the things that a lot of self-employed people fall down. So I'm really going to focus today's presentation on how to manage those. Life is all about balance, and being self-employed is all about balance. And the main reason here is that you guys have a lot to contend with, and that you have to run a business. And we have to get up out of bed, go to work, make money. Then you have to do your taxes. You have to look at, clients. You have to look at what you're doing on a daily basis. And then you have to make sure that you're balancing your personal finances as well. PAYE workers, people that go to work for somebody, like I have a team of 66 people here in my office. Those 66 people don't have to worry about the business piece. They come into work, they do a job, obviously, but just get paid at the end of the month. And that general pay is pretty much the same every month. You guys get to really impact whether you earn more or less on a weekly or a monthly basis. And it's trying to balance that with your personal finances. And the big thing I think that people do wrong when they set up a sole trader or self-employed journey is they don't know what their number is, and they don't know what they need to make sure their personal life ticks along fine. So everybody, I'll go through this again in the presentation. You need to know what your number is. You need to know what your basic number is. So there's two numbers, the basic number and I suppose the ambitious number. So the basic number is the number that puts food on the table, roof over your head, pays the bills and clothes on your backs and looks after your kids if you have kids. That number will be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, whatever it is on a monthly basis. It's going to be different for everybody. And then everybody that's solo trader has an ambition to earn more money. So they want to go on the bigger holidays, they want to have the nicer cars, they want to maybe, do things differently, what happened in their own lives. So people go self-employed for loads of different reasons. But it's important that you keep that big goal in your mind as well and be able to break that down on how much you need to do on a weekly basis or a monthly basis to deliver that bigger goal for yourself. But the very basics, you need to know how much you need to do on a weekly or monthly basis to make sure the basic number is covered, i.e. roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on your back, and like I said, make sure the kids are looked after if that's the case. So you need to really be able to be in a situation where you can balance these two. And it's difficult. And it's difficult as a sole trader. I think a lot of people get into sole trader or self-employed land thinking it's going to be very, very easy and you're going to be your own boss. But being your own boss, is sometimes very difficult. And especially if you've just become a Freenow driver, in that you might not have always been in that situation where you may have worked for somebody in the past. So it's trying to balance, like I said, is the biggest thing that we're going to probably talk about on today's session. The house of finance, if you have kids especially, or even if you're living at home, you're still living in your parents' house or whatever your situation is, when you look at everybody's personal finance, regardless of whether you're self-employed or regardless of whether you're a PAYE worker, you and possibly a partner or a spouse run the house. And when you run your household, you take on the role of your accountant, your CFO, your certified, your chief financial officer, your HR, especially if you have kids, you're the director and you're the MD. And you're the MD of all these things in your own house. So you have to make sure the mortgage and the rent is paid. You have to make sure money's coming in. You have to make sure that money goes right across the household. So all your bills are covered, the food's on the table, clothes on the back, kids' education, school books, holidays, insurance, everything is covered. And like I said, I own my own business and you own your own business. And when you're your own business, you tend to just be one thing, which is the MD, which I'm the CEO of my business. I have, luckily enough for my business, I have a CFO, an accountant, a director, and a managing director. And they help me run my business on a daily basis, weekly basis, and a yearly basis. But when you look at your own house, you don't have anybody else other than maybe yourself or your spouse or your partner. And you have to split those roles up. Now, when you decide to be self-employed, you've all these roles to take on in your self-employed life to run your business, as well as your family life when you come home from work. And that can sometimes be a challenge. And this is where it really, really needs to work from an income and expenditure point of view, where you need to know that number. And I can't stress that enough. This image is to try and kick home that you are the ATM machine. You literally bring the money into the household. You might be lucky that you have a partner or spouse working too, so you might have 2 ATM machines. Very, very, very important that the ATM machine stays in operation for as long as possible. You might have an ambition to retire and stop driving from, 60, 65, 70. Some people never stop in your career, like they continue to work till they die, and that they love being out and they love meeting people. And it's a great career that you can do that, where most people that I come across have to stop working. They stop working and they just draw a pension and they kind of disengage from work forever. Where a lot of people in your career will keep working past 60, 65. I'm not saying you have to do it, but it's a nice outlet if you want to be able to work a few hours a day or a few hours a week. So from that point of view, you need to make sure this ATM machine is up and running for as long as possible. But you also need to protect the ATM machine. You need to make sure, excuse me, that the ATM machine is fully operational as much as it can. So that means that when the ATM machine is spitting out cash, you want to make sure that you're not leaking too much to the revenue commissioners. But also, you see the 3 drawers under a sink. Those 3 drawers really represent short, medium, and long term. It's very important that you split your income up into 3 buckets. Make sure you're looking after the short term, which is week to week or month to month. It could be even summer holidays this year, or kids going back to school, or birthdays, or Christmas, whatever's going on in your life. But it also can be medium term, and it needs to be long term as well. So like I said, if you have the ambition to stop working at 55, 60 or 65 years of age, what is the plan of action and how are you going to make that happen? So all very logical so far. Now, what I want to talk to you about is the word financial well-being. Financial well-being really is talked about in the press a lot. It's talked about by a lot of banks. Let's be honest, we don't have a good relationship with banks in this country, and that we're going to be really left with the main 3 pillar of banks, Bank of Ireland, AIB and PTSB, once Ulster Bank and KBC pull out. So there's less variety and less competition in the marketplace. These 3 banks didn't really serve as well back before 2007. And the reason I'm talking about this is that you see a big, massive campaign out there at the moment, one bank in particular, Bank of Ireland, talking about financial well-being. I always have a chuckle when I hear Bank of Ireland talking about financial well-being, considering where they brought us over 15 years ago. The reason I'm having a pop at the banks is that you need to dictate what your own financial well-being is, not me, and certainly not a bank. What I'm going to do is try and help you today align what the basics of financial well-being is. So I'm going to start this presentation off for self-employed people, talking about the basis of what a financial well-being should mean to you. And then you're going to pick parts out of my presentation that would help you build your overall financial well-being by the end of this presentation. So for argument's sake, if you are that person that wants to stop working at 55 and you're 35 today, when I start talking about pensions and tax-free growth and investments, you're probably going to listen in a little bit better. So let's talk about the very basics of what financial well-being should be. So we've taken this statement. Some will say robbed it. I'm going to say borrowed. We've taken this statement, and this statement has come from the Financial Protection Bureau over in the US. We're going to read this statement and we're going to break this statement down. So they define financial well-being as a state in wherein you have control over your day-to-day, month-to-month finances. You have the capacity to absorb a financial shock, are on track to meet your financial goals, and have the financial freedom for the choices that allow you to enjoy life. Now, nowhere in this statement does it mention a bank account, a credit card, a pension, an investment account, a mortgage, a personal budget template, an emergency fund, all the things I'm going to talk about now in a couple of minutes. The most important part of this statement is that it allows you the freedom to enjoy life. You work really hard, you put in big shifts, and it's really important that when you get income into your household, that you learn how to enjoy that income. And believe it or not, I'm not here to tell you to save every penny. I'm here to tell you to enjoy life and try and spend as much money as you can, but keep an eye on the short, medium, and long-term goals that you might have. And again, I mentioned earlier on the balance piece. It's so important that your income has balance, but you need your balance to be more living for now and enjoying your income, and just a small part of that looks after the short, medium, and long term. And you don't need to be saving thousands or putting millions aside over years to have a comfortable retirement. What you do need is probably time on your side, and everybody's going to be different when it comes to this. But if we break this statement down, the first part of this statement means you have control over your day-to-day or month-to-month finances. It basically means that you can get to the end of the month or the end of the week, whenever you get paid, whenever you take money out of your business, to allow yourself not to be under pressure and not to be under stress. Finances and money are there to make sure you can enjoy your life. It's not there to stress you out. So generally speaking, if you can't get to payday or money when you take money out of your business, or when Freenow sends over money, you need to be in a situation where you're not really hanging on for that money, that you're not borrowing off friends and family, you're not on overdrafts, you're not living on credit cards, you're not dodging bills. And that can be difficult for some people, especially in a cost of living crisis. But that's the first part of financial well-being. It's not actually a pension or investment account. It's just making sure you can get week to week or month to month without being under too much financial pressure. The second part of it is that you have the capacity to absorb a financial shock. Now, being self-employed, we're going to talk about investing in pensions and all the cool stuff later on. But before you do any of that, you need to have a really good buffer or a really good emergency fund to put in place. You don't need a tire blown out or an engine failure or an emergency service or something like that derailing your financial plan. So everyone will be different, depending on obviously the age of their vehicle, depending on, their health, depending on their overall circumstances. If you're a PAYE worker and someone's just paying you at the end of the week or the end of the month, I'd be saying you need to have at least €1,000 in a credit union account. But in the career you guys have, I think it needs to be a minimum of 5,000. And I think you need to put that in place before you start building any other really cool stuff into your financial plan. Now, the very reason for this is as follows. There's no point in putting money into a pension fund or an investment account and something like an engine failure, something really going wrong with your car, causes you to have to borrow money short term to get it sorted, because you can't touch the pension till you're 60. So there's no point in having 20,000, 30,000, or 50,000 in a pension account or an investment account, and something so small as €5,000 causes you to go and start borrowing money or derailing your financial plan, i.e. you stop funding the pension because you need to cover that short-term emergency expense. So that might sound weird coming from a financial planner, because obviously pensions and investments and all that forward way thinking is great, and they form part of most of my clients' financial plan, but only when they have the basics. So I would much prefer for somebody to save up €5,000 over a year or two and then come back to me in year 3 to become a client and be able to have a clear runway at creating a really good financial plan. And I'll talk about this a little bit later on too. But making sure you can absorb a financial shock might be a health crisis. It mightn't be, the car going. It might be you going. If you can't go to work, you probably can't earn income. So it's making sure that you have the right protection plans in place and making sure that something does go wrong with major illnesses or sickness, that you have something else there to protect you. That could be something like a specified serious illness plan. So God forbid, if you did suffer a cancer, there's €100,000 of a payout there in the background. And these things are so important when you're self-employed, because you rely on you to get up and get into your car and earn an income. And without that being able to happen, your income stops. And when your income stops, all else stops, because your income basically runs your life. It puts the roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on your back. So being able to protect that income is extremely important. The next thing I want to talk about here is what's called financial goals. And financial goals are extremely important that we have them, we write them down. I'd nearly go as far as say you should put your financial goals somewhere in your car. So whether it's a side pocket of your door or whether it's under your handbrake or whatever it is, that every day you can have a look at your financial goals. And it will motivate you to work. It will motivate you to keep on, I suppose, on those tough days that we all have when we're self-employed. But your financial goals are going to be different on a personal basis. So have a think about your financial goals as I'm speaking. But financial goals will be different. They might be get a mortgage. Some of you might have a mortgage yet. It might be saving for a mortgage. It might be clear the mortgage. With rising interest rates, that might be the worst thing to do if you can. It might be that you want to retire early. It might be that you want to put kids through private education, or you might want to have kids. If you haven't had kids yet, you might want to move house. There's loads of things that take people from a financial point of view. But very seldomly do we sit down and actually write down our financial goals. And that's something why we started the Ask Paul brand years ago, was to get people talking more about personal finance and trying to write down goals and smash those goals for themselves. And I think that's so important. It's very rarely, if you don't write a goal down, it's very rare that will actually happen. So it's about visualizing for yourself and actually saying, great, I want to be in this position in 2 years' time. And then putting the stepping stones in place that get you there. And obviously, if you have a money goal in 2 years, you want to save 20 grand for a deposit for a house, and you're going to do it in 20 months, you need to save $1 grand a month or $250 a week. So it's breaking down those goals into sizable chunks that you can absorb on a weekly basis or a monthly basis without disrupting that enjoyment of life. And it's about being pragmatic about your financial goals as well. A lot of people come to me in the financial goals that are just off the wall, that they're sacrificing way too much for. For argument's sake, there's a thing called FIRE, the FIRE movement, where it's financial independence, retire early. I think it's nonsense. It basically means you live a very, very frugal life for 10 years and get to a figure, a savings amount that allow you live on a very small amount of money for the rest of your life without having to go to work. I don't agree with that. I think having a really good work-life balance over a 20 or 30-year period where you're able to enjoy life is really important. So like I said, everyone's going to be different when it comes to our financial goals. It will be important to discuss them today. And like I said already, the most important part of this statement is have the financial freedom to make the choices that allow you to enjoy life. You want to have money in your back pocket. You want to go on holidays. You want to be able to enjoy life. And that's actually the most important part of this statement. I think that's really, really, really important. We'll talk about it as we go through. The financial wheel of life, I think Jamie and the team are going to get this around to everybody. This is really important. We're going to discuss today is the personal budget and the emergency fund, debt, protection, savings and investments, mortgages, pensions and tax. So I'm going to try and get through most of this today. If you look at the first part, the personal budget, a personal budget is really important for self-employed people. I mentioned earlier on about knowing your number. So the personal budget is going to be distributed to everybody. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes to complete. The personal budget template just literally brings in your income on one side, so where your income is coming from. And again, if you're in a relationship with somebody, a partner or a spouse, and their income's coming in, you're living together, you should include it too. So what money's coming into the household, it can include children's allowance or any social welfare payments or whatever is coming into the household, you put it in. And then all your outgoings, starting with the biggest down to the smaller. So most likely mortgage and rent, or mortgage or rent, and then going down through whether it's shopping or utility bills, kids, etc. And what you need to find out is what that basic number is to survive, and make sure you have a plan in place and work to be self-employed to hit that very basic number. And then what that overachieving number is. What do you want to go on that extra holiday, upgrade the car every few years, or having to borrow, keeping your borrow to a minimum. And that's so important. The next, we talk about the emergency fund, and the same personal budget emergency fund, having that minimum of €1,000 or €5,000. It could be even more depending on your circumstances. If you have a spouse that isn't working and you're the sole income, you'll probably want a bigger emergency fund because you've only got one income coming into the household. But you should be able to find that number yourself. It's usually about 3-month expenses or 6-month expenses, depending on how risk averse you are. So if you found your number is £3,000, you should possibly have €9,000 in an emergency fund. If it's £5,000, obviously 15k. But if it's £5,000 and your spouse is working, bringing in €2,500, well, something goes wrong, £2,500 is still coming in. So therefore, you only have to cover £2,500 by 3 months, which is £7,500 in the emergency funds. That's how the emergency fund works. Now, you see here under debt, there's a score between 0 and 10. Now, I'm not here to tell you not to have any personal debt. A lot of you will probably have car loans because that's your occupation. It's very much linked to you making money, which is fine. But we like to see people with no debt. Now, I know some of you are going to squint going, who does this guy think he is saying no debt? I'm not saying no debt today. I'm going to say no debt in 5 years or 10 years. Now, bear with me while I talk you through this. The reason for that is I would love you all to be your own bank. And I think every single person on this webinar has the ability to be their own bank. When you go to a bank and you get a loan off a bank for a car, typically speaking, that's probably what most of you have done or doing or done in the past. If you go to buy a car loan, you're buying a car loan and you're not buying a car, okay? Because the car loan company owns the car in most cases. So you're actually buying a loan, and the loan has an interest rate attracted to it. And typically speaking, Your loan is going to cost you money over the years, where your car is going to depreciate in value. So you're actually buying the loan for a depreciating asset, which is the car, which you guys obviously need. Now, what I'd love a situation is that if you had a investment account and you built your investment account up over 5 or 10 years, in 5 or 10 years, you should have 30, 40, 50K, whatever is your investment account. And when it comes to changing the car, you're going to use your investment account. And the investment account should have made interest or returns for you over 5 or 10 years. And that's when you become your own bank. It might take some of you 15 years. It doesn't make a difference. It should be something that every single person in this country strives to have, is an investment account where they're their own bank. You can set an investment account up from as little as €100, you know, so it could be 20 years by the time you have enough money to buy a car with your investment account. But trust me, the day you buy a car with your investment account that's been making interest rather than causing you interest or costing you interest is a really good day. Hopefully someone will be able to do in 3 years or 5 years time. And that's what I really want people to have: no debt, that they rely on their own investment account to cover their expenses. It can be very difficult to do, especially if you're in debt. But if you're not in debt, you know, it's easy to do, in my opinion, if you have extra disposable income. Protection, we mentioned this slightly already, in that we want to make sure that we have the usual stuff in place, like life assurance plans. As a self-employed person, you can get life assurance with tax relief. I'm pretty sure none of you know that, because in the life assurance companies in Ireland, less than 5% of their life assurance has what's called pension term assurance. It's nothing to do with a pension. It's just how weird our industry works. It's linked to the tax relief. It's the same tax relief you enjoy with a pension, and it's on life cover. So every single one of you will qualify for tax relief up to 20% or 40% on your life assurance contracts. So it's really important you have the right life assurance contract in place, where you make sure the revenue commissioner is helping you fund your protection of your family and your kids. Next, we're going to talk about savings and investments. We're going to talk about mortgages actually first, pensions, and then a little bit about tax. Now, the reason why this is in this way, guys, is that life will work differently, in that not everybody's going to be 10 out of 10 on the financial wheel of life. So if you look at this, let's keep an eye on the debt and the mortgage. So as this 18-year-old starts off, they're going to have high debt, maybe an emergency fund in place, hopefully know a little bit about tax. And then as they get into their 30s, they're going to start with a mortgage. The mortgage decreases, they get towards 50, 60 years of age. You see their pension is being topping up right the way through 50, 60 years of age. They're up to the top of the pension. And then by the time they get to 70s, they should have no short-term debt and no mortgage. They should have a pension plan in place, a savings and investment plan, and making sure they have those protection benefits in place for the family. You're not going to get there today, and today's presentation is not about telling you what you need to do now. It's about trying to educate you on things you should be trying to achieve throughout your financial life. So it's not a lecture. It's more of these things you need to consider, but consider when the time is right for you, because everybody's going to be different. I think that's so important. We'll talk about the economic update. We get this question quite a lot and asked, Paul, especially about the property markets. I'm going to cover this off first, because it's probably on the back of all your minds, especially being a sole trader, being self-employed. So the property market. Currently, we're here seeing a really, really massive high inflation. And on the back of that, we're seeing interest rates go up. And I'm going to explain why that's happening, okay? So in a interest rate environment, in an inflation environment, so inflation last year was riding up around 10% across the European Union. It was ridiculously high, because we've been really spoiled with 0% inflation and 0% interest rates. That was a fake environment. A lot of people think we're going to go back to that. We're not going to go back to that. Very rarely as a financial advisor, we can talk about having a crystal ball. One thing I always hit the clients when it comes to stocks and shares and markets and futures, I don't have a crystal ball. We kind of do have a crystal ball when it comes to inflation and interest rates, because we know what the European Central Bank is trying to do. And the European Central Bank is going to have an impact to every single one of you. So the European Central Bank is trying to bring inflation back down to about 2 to 2.5%. Good news that that's happening quite quickly. The last indication are saying we're riding between 5 and 6%. And last year we were 10%. But the problem for us is that Spain and Portugal, I think it is, or France, are still riding quite high. They're much higher, and that inflation isn't coming down as quick. Now, we're part of the European Union, so the European Central Bank is going to do what's right for the European Union, not what's right for somebody in Ireland's mortgage interest rate. So the only thing the European Central Bank has in its toolkit to bring down inflation is to increase interest rates, or the European Central Bank increase them. And basically what happens there is that the cost of borrowing gets extremely high. And that means they suck money out of the economy. And when you suck money out of an economy, inflation falls. And that's what's after happening over the last 12 months, or less than 12 months, 6 or 7 months. It started last June. So last April, May, the European Central Bank was 0, and now it's at 3. It's gone up and up and up. It's going to be another rate increase in the next couple of weeks. And another rate increase probably by the end of the year, if not 2 more by the end of the year. So I think the European Central Bank is going to end up at 4% by the end of the year. Don't forget it was 0 last year. If you have a tracker rate mortgage, this is hell on earth, in that you've been just getting letters every couple of weeks from your bank, or every couple of months, saying interest rates are going up, and your mortgage is getting more and more and more expensive. If you're a first-time buyer thinking about getting on the property ladder, mortgages are extremely more expensive this year than they were last year, which is obviously going to be causing concern to affordability. The good news is the European Central Bank is trying to get inflation to 2.5%. If it manages to get inflation to 2.5%, we have a crystal ball, and that we will know that European Central Bank rates will usually typically be higher than inflation. So inflation's 2.5, your base rate will be 3, which is pretty much what it is today. So I do think we're going to see a spike in interest rates, but they're going to fall back to where they are today. But I don't think they're going to fall back to where they were last year or last month. So I think they're always going to remain in and around 3%. So that should be the budgeting if you're going for a mortgage, or if you have got a tracker rate, depending on one of the biggest questions I get is, should I clear my tracker rate or should I fix it? In most cases, the answer is yes, you should be fixing. You should be fixing for a lower fixed rate. But unfortunately, the banks are putting fixed rates up, rates are not. And that's going to get even more, I suppose, more difficult for consumers, because as KBC and Ulster Bank leave, you're going to be left with those 3 Irish banks, which are going to crucify us from a rate point of view, in my opinion. So that's where we are in the market at the moment in relation to inflation and interest rates. The property market, I think, is going to remain really robust. It's going to remain robust in the fact that we have a massive supply and demand issue in this country. I mean, you guys are in your car most of the time. You're listening to the radio probably more than I do. Every single radio interview for the last 2 years by any politician, they're getting hammered on houses. We are simply not building enough houses, and we're not going to be anywhere near building enough houses probably for 5 to 7 years. And while you have a supply issue and high demand, houses will always remain robust. So it's my forecast that house prices are going to be probably mid-single digits this year, 5 or 6% growth, the same for 2024 and 2025. And I think if interest rates do start coming down and ease towards the end of next year, you might even see double digits come back into the property market. Here at Ask Paul, we do mortgages. We have a pretty large mortgage team, and we are out the door, and we have hundreds of people qualified for mortgages that just can't find a house. And we're just one brokerage in the overall Irish marketplace, and pretty much everybody is saying the exact same thing. So I don't think there's going to be a crash. I don't think there's anything like 2007 going to happen. I think the central bank is very, very well prepared. I think borrowing being limited has been a great thing, although very frustrating for first-time buyers. So I think we've kept a cap on, house prices as best we can, and I think we've been really good with lending. And I also think the economy is really healthy because unemployment is really low. Regardless of the big tech companies going, tech is in for a big difficult time. You've probably all heard of Silicon Valley Bank and the problems they've had over the last couple of weeks. That might be a can of worms coming out to haunt us over the next couple of years here in Ireland with tech firms. But I do think we're going to see an isolation with tech only. I think financials remain robust, pharmaceutical remain robust, manufacturing will remain robust. And construction will remain robust. So most other sectors are going to be fairly healthy over the next couple of years, but I do think tech are in for a rough time. But overall, economy is probably going to remain robust enough and quite healthy, and the same with house prices. So I can't see that fear of these biggest things happening. One thing I want to show you here, I might actually stop the share screen when I prepare another slide. Actually, I'll do it live for everybody because it will mean way more than what I have in the presentation. A mortgage is the biggest financial commitment you're going to make. I'm going to show you how a mortgage works in a live demonstration now in a couple of seconds. Very important that you have a broker, whether it's us or somebody else. You never walk into your own bank or just one bank. Every bank is going to be different how they treat self-employed people, especially people in your line of work. They're also going to be different depending on what your spouse is doing as well. There's over, I think, 240 different interest rates in the marketplace at the moment. The main rule of thumb has to be to get the cheapest rate as a very baseline. But then we have some clients that might have credit issues that might have to go to another lender. We have some clients that, spouses might be on overtime or bonuses, and they're going to be calculated differently by a different lender. So we'll always start with, this is the cheapest rate. Tell us your circumstances, and we'll try and find you the cheapest rate for your circumstances. That might be the cheapest rate in the market, but it might be the cheapest rate in the market for you. And everybody is different when it comes to their personal finances. So And look, guys, whether you have a mortgage or whether you need a mortgage, this is very important, because if you have a mortgage, you either have a fixed rate. If you have a fixed rate, you're going to be coming off that fixed rate soon, I guess, and you're going to be experiencing an excruciatingly increase in your mortgage repayments. If you have a tracker, you're getting those letters every couple of months with rates going up. And you know, if you have a variable rate, you shouldn't have a variable rate because they're most expensive in the marketplace. You need to fix as soon as possible. So I'm guessing that this is value to everybody that's on this, or anyone that's watching this back at a later date. 2-year sets of accounts is what's needed for self-employed. So if you've recently decided to choose your career in the last year, you're going to need 2-year sets of accounts being a sole trader before you can apply for a mortgage. Now, they're not 2 sets of bank accounts. They're 2-year sets of actual accounts by your accountant, which are returns to the revenue commissioners. The biggest problem that people in your career usually face when it comes to mortgages was that they wouldn't have been declaring all their cash, and that they would have been a very cash generative business. But that obviously has really drastically changed since COVID-19 and the use of the likes of Freenow and the use of paying on apps and tapping, etc. So it should be much easier for you to declare your actual real income compared to what it was a few years ago. Because a few years ago, we would have seen drivers come in where they would have been in a situation where they were maybe earning way more than what they're declaring, because you're living in a cash environment, and it's very, very difficult to declare all that cash for some people. So that issue, because Freenow are now and the way you guys get paid is really gone for you. So I think that's great. When it comes to the mortgage application, it should be a lot of it should be a much cleaner process for you guys. So give me 1 second. I'm going to stop the screen share, and I'm going to just try and change my screens a little bit. So give me 1 second. I promise you this will really be worth it. Because I'm going to show you next will have a massive impact to either everybody now or in the future, which I think is going to be priceless. I can talk about all the investment and pensions in a couple of seconds, but until you see this, and why I say a mortgage is your biggest financial commitment. So 1 second now, tools. So what I want to do this live. I think it gives a way better result for everybody, guys. So Jamie, you might just shake your head or give me a thumbs up when you can see the screen. Give me a second. You can see the screen now. Yeah, great. Okay. So guys, this is a typical mortgage calculator we use for our clients. Let's say someone's going to borrow €350,000 and the interest rate last year would have been 2.3%, would have been a decent rate we could get them. And let's say it's a term over 30 years for most people. Okay. It's not calculating for some reason. Second. This is typical when you do a live environment and the system's not working. Give me 1 second. I think I know what that is. Let me see, tools. Just go back into it again. Give me 1 second. It's on a live system, so I have to stop the screen share every time, guys, but I'll try to figure this out now if I can live. Tools and mortgage calculator. Yeah, this is working great. Okay, we go back again. Make sure no one's names are seen on this. No, great. Apologies about this. This will make sense in a couple of minutes, guys. You can see that again, Jamie. Yeah, yeah. Okay, great. So we're going to go back here again, guys. €350,000 mortgage. 2.3 would have been a decent rate last year over 30 years. Now, this is how a mortgage works. Most people look at this. The repayment is €1,300. Now, if you're living and renting in Dublin, you're probably paying 1,800, 2 grand, two a month. So most people, first-time buyers, say, wow, 1,300 quid's in, let's do this, I'm fine. Problem is this, the total interest charge is actually 134 grand. So the bank is charging you 134,000 over 30 years. So you should be trying to make this as low as possible. Here's the kicker. This is a first-time buyer last year. This year, rates are 4%. Okay, you can get 3.2, 3.5, but they're really short term. So for the longer term fixed rates, like 10 years is what you should be going for. At 4%, wait till you see this. See this 134,000? They're going to hit calculate, and now jumps at 250 grand. Now there's an extra €120,000 interest on that mortgage since last year. That's the impact that interest rate increases have caused to mortgages across this country, and no one's talking about it because most people still look at the 60 and 70 figure and say, yeah, I can still afford it. I was paying 1,800 quid in rent or 2 grand in rent, so I'm still up because I'm going in at 1,600 quid. But it's this extra 120,000 euro that's missing. Now, for you guys to earn 120 grand after tax will probably take you 4 or 5 years of driving around. And that means you're only driving around for the next 4 or 5 years for no reason than paying a banker, which is a very, very, very difficult pill to swallow. And this is why I'm so passionate about financial planning. I haven't mentioned any of our services. That's not what I'm here to do. We hope to work with you all in the future if you want. But I'm trying to educate people on why it's so important to fix your mortgage and not have these increases. Last year, I was screaming for people to fix at 2.2% with a lender in the Irish marketplace called Finance Ireland. And they had done that, their interest would have been in around, seen it around about 120 grand. And that was term, sorry, it was a 3-year term. And it was 2.2. And I was going for fixed rates over 25 years. You could fix your mortgage for with this company this time last year. They've now suspended all rates over 10 years. And they've also got the highest rates of 6 and 7% now. I kid you not. Now, when I look at 6 or 7%, let's put 7%, 6.2, I think is one of their rates today. So last year you get 2.2 and today it's 6. Look at this, 400 grand. That's nearly a 300,000 euro difference in interest over the last 12 months. That's what's happened to the mortgage market. Now, I know I'm quite passionate about this because, again, most people don't need everyone needs a pension or investment account, in my opinion, but they really need a mortgage because the roof over their head, they're not renting. And again, people only look at this 2,100, again, not too bad, as you could probably afford it compared to renting. But it's the impact of your financial plan over that period of time. You should have 300 grand extra in your pension plan and allow you to retire early rather than paying bankers higher interest rates. And that's why having a financial planner is so important. Hopefully it's us or somebody else, if it must be, if you don't like us. But having a financial planner is so important because these are the impacts that happen behind closed doors in European Central Bank that you don't realize. You get a letter saying your mortgage is going up by 70 quid or 200 quid. It's a hard pill to swallow. But on the overall financial picture, it's destroying your finances. And that's so important. And that's why we're so passionate about financial planning and letting people know these type of things. So anyway, that's the mortgage calculator. What I'll do is later on, if you want me to, what we might do is turn mics on and everything later on for people or put them in the chat box. I'll do quick mortgage calculation if you want me to do it. So you could just type in the question box what your mortgage is or what the mortgage amount you're thinking of doing, term and interest rate, and I'll show you what to do. The other thing is, let's not dramatize this too much. It's not 6.2 for everybody. That's one bank. So it's about, say, 3.8 is a good rate at the moment. Look at the impact here. See this 3.8%? It's 1,600 quid a month. If you can overpay your mortgage by 200 quid a month, see this 237. So if you can overpay here by 200 euro per month or 50 quid a week, your calculation 237 now goes down to 188. So that saves you 50 grand in interest. But it's also peeled off 5 years off your mortgage. You're now down to 25-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage. Again, it's hard for me to do that for everybody. And that's why we have financial planning consultations, that we can try and bring people through their overall financial plan. And it's so important because there's loads of things that are going to be bringing you through. It's so important to keep an eye on. So I'm just going to stop the screen share here. Second. Stop share. I'm going to go back into the presentation. Sorry about this, guys. I just think it's valuable to see these type of things while you have me here. Okay, and then we're going to go back to screen share and live demo. Okay, so we've done the live demo. Now, when it comes to financial plan, there's 3 main components for everybody. It's to protect, grow, and replace your money. Protect, we mentioned earlier on, if you can't go to work or something happens to the car, the emergency fund or a specified serious illness plan or something that's going to help you if you're out sick long-term work-wise. Grow basically means an investment account. Deposit accounts across the country are still less than 1%. So the banks, being banks, have passed them on mortgage interest rate wise to grab money out of your back pocket, but they're not giving you a return on your money. So you can't keep your money on cash. The only reason you should have your money on cash is that emergency fund. I think the credit union is the best place to keep that money. We're going to look at investing now. And then replace means when you get to retirement age, you need to have something to replace your income, whether it's a pension or a second property, cash on the mattress, whatever it is. You need to have something if you don't want to go to work. You need to have income still coming in. So when we talk about growing your income, the main thing you look at in a business for you guys is that you bring money into your household and all that goes out is money. Everything you need money for, every time you take money, you're in a situation where you're paying the tax man. So when you get paid money over from your Freenow account or whatever comes into your sole trader account, as soon as you see the need to take money out of that, you're paying the revenue commissioners. So it's really important that you try and structure things like pension accounts, because there's tax relief on it. Life insurance with tax relief is really important too. So it's trying to make sure that you're doing the maximum you can without paying too much tax. And that's really the biggest trick of being a sole trader, because the more you can do and the more money you can keep for yourself, the better it's going to be. Another thing with business owners have that you end up burying your head in the sand. So when it comes to taxes or financial planning or investing or pensions, it's easier to go, not a hope, I don't understand it, I'm not going to get help, I'm not going to listen to somebody, or who's your man think he is. The real reason we're doing this is trying to break down the barriers that financial planners, I'm not going to sit down and try and get you to put all your money away and not to have a good lifestyle. I'm here to help you have a really good lifestyle by keeping an eye on the short, medium, and long term. That's all a financial planner does. We're not stock advisors. We're not like some advisors pretend to be, and they try and really overcomplicate it for our clients. We are about making things as simple as possible for people. I'm hoping that's coming through in today's presentation. But please, don't be this guy when it comes to a sole trader, because you're probably missing so much that's going on around you. And getting advice is probably the biggest thing you can do, whether it's your interest for your mortgage or whether it's investment accounts, etc. Here's the magic of compound interest. A lot of people say to me that they want to be a millionaire. And a lot of people say they feel they can't become a millionaire because of their job. I disagree with that. So here's an example of investing and getting a 9% return. The gray line here is something. Sorry, these are 3 people. Let's say 3 drivers at Freenow. And they're all taking an investment account out, and they invest in different assets or different risk profiles. So, but they're all putting the same 250 quid aside. You see here the guy at 250 quid at 9% is the grey line over a 30-year period. So we have them invested in 1990 and kept investing. Now, some of you, including Jamie, were probably kids and couldn't afford to put 250 quid aside every month. I couldn't either. For the record, I'm only 40, but I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, if you went back to 1990 and you put 250 quid a month aside, this person would have about 540 grand in an account now. Now that's before tax and everything else, but in the pension, there's no tax. So again, it depends on what account you're going for and what your overall circumstance and age profile are. Now we look at the second person, the orange line, they've only got about 180 grand of a return, or sorry, 280 grand of a return, because they've only got 6%. And the guy in the blue line has got about 180 grand. Same 250 euro, massive difference when they got to 30 years later. So being known where to invest and how to invest is extremely important. Now, some of you might say, where would you get that type of return? So I'm going to show you. I'm actually going to show you this way. Oh, came out of the presentation. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Clicked on too far now. So this is the stock market as it stands today, real time. It's the 13th of March, rather. Yeah. So yesterday closed of business. This is COVID-19, this dip here, and this is the height of the market up until last year. And then the market's had a lot of wobbles, and this is the last couple of weeks. Markets had a wobble again, the back of this Silicon Valley Bank. You will always find that markets will go up and down in value, and that's never, ever, ever going to stop. And I think we all know that. So here's a fund that I use. I'm going to show you now. I'm just going to Google it. There's one yourself if you just want. The Zurich Dynamic Fund is a fund that we put into the Ask Paul Investment Club. So I've got the Ask Paul Investment Club. It's where we invest. I invest a couple of grand on a monthly basis. Started at 500 euro. If a few thousand people follow me, you can get involved from 100 quid per month. This fund's been around since 1989. It has just under 2 billion in it. It tracks 660 stocks. So for your 100 quid, someone that's managing 2 billion will manage your 100 quid and invested around 660 stocks, which is amazing. But since 1989, remember I showed you that graph was from 1990, this fund has done 10.7% per annum on average. And my one did 9% in my graph. So if you had someone putting 500 quid or a couple putting 250 each in, they would have over 1 million in funding by now. So what you need to become really successful with money is a long period of time and a small amount of money on a monthly basis. Obviously, if you can shorten that time frame and increase your monthly input, it's going to be quicker. But this is not a marathon. It's not a sprint, rather, it's a marathon. It's trying to get there over a long period of time. And so many people are focused on trying to become rich quick and trying to look at cryptocurrencies and all this nonsense about trying to get rich quick. Slow and steady will always win when it comes to investment markets and putting money aside. So that's one of the funds I use. I use multiple funds. It's one of the funds we use for the Ask Paul Investment Club. But like I said, that type of return is brilliant. Look at this. Last year it did minus 18%. So before you invest, the main 3 rules are: short-term cash is required to be put on deposit. your emergency fund is in place, and you have no short-term debt. There's no point to trying. This fund will not always do 10%. It's going to go up and down in value. And in fact, if you look at it here over the last 3 years, okay, it's a bad record. It's a good record, 28%. Over 10 years, 9%. Over 5 years, 7.9%. Call it 8%. The sector average was 3.8. So there's no point in getting 3.8 on the sector average if you know you're costing your car loan 8% a month. Obviously, or 8% a year, you'd overpay your car loan because you know you're definitely getting an 8% return there because that's what the car loan is set at. So trying to get yourself debt-free and then pumping all your money into markets, or all the money that you would have been paying off your loan into the markets, is really what the strategy is here that wins out over the long term. But look at this. This fund did a -4 in 18. In 2007, I can tell you it was down 30% after the financial crisis. Now, it was up 41% the following 2 years, so we rebounded fairly quickly. The method here is that you invest a small amount of money on a regular basis, because what you're doing is you're buying the market high, low, and you're getting the average of the market. That's a real trick when it comes to investing. I'll stop that one and I'll try and get back into the presentation. You can see the presentation again, Jamie. Yeah, great. So that's really what happens when it comes to, investing. It is actually that easy. A lot of people make hard work. They have the Zero accounts, they've got stockbroker accounts, or they're using Revolut, which is not investing, in my opinion. You're picking 1 or 2 stocks, which might as well be going to Paddy Power. You need someone like a fund manager that's been managing billions, or else you want to track the market, you want a passive play, which if anyone knows what that means, they know what I'm talking about when you're just passively tracking the market. And when it comes to replacement, we're talking about pensions. Now, don't bore anybody to tears. Got a couple of examples here for you. This is what a cash flow model looks. We're going to look at the one on the left here. So I'll see, can I use this pen, laser pen? So on the left here, you're going to see 164,000, okay? So very simply, this is somebody putting money into the markets on a monthly basis, into the investment account. If memory says you're getting €500 a month, when this client gets to 60 years of age, you're going to have 164 grand. The reason for this is that they've got a 4.13 net return because their growth is taxed in investment accounts. Click over here, and when they get to 65, they've got €330,000 in their investment account because in the pension, there's no tax. So they're getting a real 7%. Yeah, 7% versus 4.13. And that's the difference between a pension. However, we know that we need to change our cars. We need to educate our kids. We need to go on holidays. So we need a blend of both. It's not always about pension because you can't touch your pension till 60. Now, although I've got 65 on this, at 60 when you can access the personal pension, typically speaking. So a personal pension is great and it gets tax relief. So the €500 here will only be €300 after tax if you're on the higher rate of income tax because you get automatic tax relief. That brings your tax liability down. So you're getting massive tax. Like a pension is single-handed the best way to build wealth in this country, but you can't touch the 60. So you're looking for balance. Again, an investment account and a pension account. So in the ideal world, and guys, I know not everyone can do this today, so I'm not trying to be frustrating you here. It might be 5 years or 10 years by the time you can do this, but you need to get yourself into a position to do it for a really good financial well-being financial plan. You need to have cash, emergency fund, first of all, minimum 5 grand. Then short-term cash reserves, holidays for this year, next year, or know you're going to save it up. And then you think, right, I don't need 200 quid a month for 5 years. That's an investment account. Or great, I want to reduce my tax bill and put 5 grand a year into the pension, and that's 20 or 30 years or 10 or 15 years away. And that's all a financial plan needs. It's not rocket science, but it's trying to break it up into easily bite-sized chunks that you understand and know how you access these different accounts along your timeline in life. And it's that simple. But that's what it looks like to having 2. So you kind of want this account down here. This guy has a current account where he's managing his money. He has an on-post account or a credit union for his emergency fund. He has an investment account, and then he also has his pension account. Now you see down here, he's about 150 grand in his current account, but that will fluctuate because he's going to spend that on holidays and kids. So that's a savings on a kind of day-to-day basis or month-to-month. Emergency fund is 5 years plus, your investment account is 5 years plus, and then your pension is 10, 20, 30 years plus, depending on your age profile. Take that off. If I can. Not the best at the old tech, so do bear with me. Now, the other thing when you look at retirement, when it comes to retirement, these are things I typically ask my clients to consider. Are you going to downsize your house? Are you going to own your house? Are you going to still have a mortgage? Hard to retire if you have a 2 grand mortgage. Are you going to have inheritance coming your way? Or are you going to be giving inheritance down to your kids? What's the tax implication of that inheritance? Are you going to live to 100? We're living longer as people. So my granddad died at 74. He was ancient when I was a kid. My dad's 74 now, and I think he's a really young man. And he's healthy and he's fine. Hope he's going to have a really long, healthy life ahead of him. But he needs to have income for an extra 10 or 15, 20 years compared to what his dad needed. Are you going to need a fair deal scheme? Are your parents going to need a fair deal scheme and thus leaving less inheritance to their kids? Are you going to have grandchildren? Are your grandchildren going to be living in Ireland? Are you going to be single income households? So if you're single, it's going to be hard to fund because you only got one income. Do you want to be able to go on holidays? What's your lifestyle going to be like? Are you going to be mortgage free? And these are all things you need to be considering as you go through retirement age. Pensions explained from a tax relief point of view before I finish up. This is very, very simple. Every time you put €100 into a pension, if you're declared with less than 40 grand income a year, you're on the lower rate of income tax, 20%. If you're declared on more than 40 grand income a year, you're on the higher rate of income tax more than likely, unless you have spouses credits or something else going on, and you're on the high rate of income tax, which is 40%. Every time you put €100 into a pension plan on the right-hand side here, every time you put 100 quid in here, it's only costing you 60. The revenue give you €40 relief against your tax bill. That's the equivalent of a 60% return. Now just let that sink in. You started with 60 and you're getting to 100. So it's a 60% return. You're getting 40% back, but it's a real 60% growth in your money. I mentioned investment markets doing 9% per annum over 30 years. This is guaranteed 60% return from the Irish revenue. They're giving you money. You don't see that because when you do your tax returns in October and your accountant says pay 5 grand in there, that 5 grand is saving you probably 2 or 3 grand in your tax bill. But if I was to say to you in a different way, give me €60 and I'm going to make €100, the way they used to do with SSAs, but that's technically what's happening in the background, guys. If you're on the low rate of income tax, it's 20%, which is 26% relief. Now, when you put your money into your investment account, you'll be putting it into something like the dynamic fund and getting another 6 or 8% or hopefully even higher on a return. So it's your money on steroids, but you can't access it till 60. So don't put all your money in there. And also, you might be still living at home. If you're a young driver and you're still living at home, you don't need a pension. You need a property. You need to get yourself a house deposit. There's no point in having 10 grand in a pension for 65-year-old you if you're still living in your mum and dad's box room. You need to make sure that now is prioritized. And that's what a financial plan, that's why I asked you about your financial goals. It's about us trying to help you prioritize what you need to do short, medium, and long term. So if I had somebody at 32 years of age and is renting and hasn't got a house, you won't be getting a pension advice. You'll be getting build up as much cash as possible and get mortgage advice off me. And then in 2 or 3 years' time, we move to investment account advice. And then another 2 or 3 years' time, we might move to pension advice because you're only 30 and you have 30 years to sort out your pension. So often you'll find pension salespeople ramming pensions down your throat, showing you graphs like this, saying how great it is. It might be great, but it might be great for you where you are today in your financial journey. Or else somebody's selling you an investment account when you might have short-term debt. So I hope that makes sense when it comes to financial planning, guys, and why we're kind of passionate about it, you probably can feel. Business financial planning. We have consultations that we look after for business owners as well. We look at, your personal cash flow model, aligning your business, your personal, protecting and growing your business, guidance as an owner, as an entrepreneur, referral for accountancy service. You probably all have accountants at this stage, and we can do tax advice when relevant for looking at estate planning and various different things.